34 coming at you today with Kleibcast number 1, part B, I guess you'd call it. For those of you who did tune in last week, thank you. We tried to get a podcast going. For those of you who don't know that I'm starting a podcast, then welcome. But long story short, if you weren't here, the audio wasn't great. The video wasn't coming through too clear. And then perhaps the internet was just trying to put me out of my misery because the whole thing crashed after like 12 minutes, I think it was. And then I went on to record the whole thing. So you can imagine how silly I probably felt after the fact when I was sitting here talking and I thought I was recording and it had been shut off for probably the last, I think it went for about 50 minutes. So the last 40 minutes or so, it just basically shut down and I was talking to nothing. But we're back, hopefully looking better, sounding better, hopefully just able to kind of work out some of the kinks. Maybe that the one positive from last week with the audio not be, or the video not being as clear as it could be, is that I kind of have this Corona cut going on still, and showing that to the world is just not something that I really wanted to do. I mean, I guess I don't care at the end of the day, but what happened was, we're all stuck inside, my hair's getting long, and I was like, I've always wanted a buzz cut, or not a buzz cut, but to go bald, and I just don't, as much as I would love to, I don't have the confidence to do something like that, and then go out in public like that, and I didn't know if I could pull it off or not. Long story short, I was like, okay, we'll do this, I'm going to be stuck inside, no social gatherings for the next however many months, and I gave myself the baldini upstairs, and it didn't work out. I admire those of you bald dudes and chicks and whoever shaves their head who can pull it off, because I am not an individual who is capable of doing that. It looked very bad. I have a lumpy head and I have a big head, very big head, and it just was not working. But anyways, back on track here with what I am trying to do is we are going to be doing this podcast, and it's basically going to be the hot topics over the last couple of weeks in automotive news. And I'm going to get on here and I'm going to get straight to the point. I'm one of those people who's really straight to the point, doesn't beat around the bush. I don't do all that PC nonsense and whatever. I'm respectful, but I get straight to the point. We talk about it, we dissect it, talk about what's really going on and who's full of shit and who's not. And that's what we're going to be doing here. So basically, thank you for watching. If you miss any part of this podcast, which hopefully all the segments should be listed on this side, I think. Right? If you miss any part of it, you want to go back, you want to watch the whole thing again, the whole podcast will be uploaded to YouTube, and all those segments will be individually uploaded to YouTube over the course of the week as well. So, thank you guys for joining in here. We're going to talk about some topics, a couple that I have listed here. There's an Eleanor lawsuit. YouTube channel is being sued over building an Eleanor Mustang. Yeah, for real. Volkswagen made another racist advertisement, and I say another because apparently that happened before, and we forgot about it. You can do that on your own, though. Look into that. No more C8 news. C8 Corvette. Up-and-coming platform. Lots of interesting things happening already, including the news of a new top-tier trim level above the ZR1. Last but not least, we are going to get into how coronavirus is affecting racing. There's an interesting story there. Just give me a minute to explain. It's going to be a very short one. I don't like getting into too many mainstream news topics, but we'll briefly touch on that. But without further ado, how could I forget? We don't have a main sponsor for the show for now. So if you'd like to support this up-and-coming, blossoming, blooming podcast that will be the best in the world one day, hopefully, or there just won't be an episode 2. I kid. There will be at least a second episode. You could go grab yourself a Run Your Car, Not Your Mouth hoodie, t-shirt, whatever you want to get, stickers. I will try my best, since I'm still trying to figure out this live stream thing, to pin that in the comments or put it in the description or something or other. Somewhere on this video, you should be able to find out where to go to buy one of those if you want to support the podcast. Anyways, without further ado, let's hop straight into this first story. This was actually like a last-minute addition. I saw it right before I was getting ready to record this, and after I had researched everything else. But the owner of the rights holder for the Eleanor nameplate, you guys all know Eleanor, Gone in 60 Seconds, the Mustang. But the person who owns the rights to that car apparently, in my opinion, is a little bit over sue happy. You guys all know the car. There's tributes built all the time. Replicas, they're built, sold, yada, yada, yada. This rights holder is very adamant about defending the trademark. And the latest target has been the B is for Build YouTube channel. Essentially what they're doing over there, well, they were doing, was building a modern meets classic Mustang. This is one of my favorite kind of builds, too, where you kind of take all the technology. I know there's really something to be said about the simplicity of like an old school muscle car, but there's also something to be said about taking the technology out of a modern car. They took a 2015 Mustang and essentially stuffed all of that technology into a 67, and then they were going to try and make that an Eleanor along with the swap, which I thought would be pretty darn cool. But what happened was, it got blocked by the rights holder. The person who owns the name Eleanor, as it relates to Gone in 60 Seconds, decided, no. You're not going to do this and make money off of it, and this is my copyright, which normally, you know, it's kind of a reach with something like that, in my opinion. But, you know, I am someone who, as a digital content creator, kind of can look at something like that and go, you know, I've never had $1 million idea. I mean, I have kind of gotten people to take stuff down on a lower dollar scale, right? So I don't know what it's like to be the owner of a multi-million dollar, I'm sure, concept in Eleanor, and I don't know what it's like to have people steal my idea. Well, steal. I'm not saying B is for Build stole anything, but you get the idea. There's different opinions that could float around about this, but the real kicker here is none of that. The real kicker is that, by the way, the holder of the rights is actually the widow of the guy who created the original Eleanor. So one thing I didn't know, we're going to pull up some pictures here that will really help you get infuriated about this story probably, is that the original Eleanor looks like this. So it's a the movie came out in 1974. It's a 71 Mustang, and it's bright yellow. It's, in my opinion, kind of ugly. This is probably, in my book, one of the uglier Mustangs. The 71. It's not like terrible. It's not like Mustang 2 levels of ugly. Sorry about all the people that I probably just offended by saying that, but you know where you stand in the car community. Not trying to be a gatekeeper or anything, but all jokes aside, the bright yellow 71 Mustang, basically stock, is kind of, I don't know. So naturally, the guys from B is for Build were not emulating this car. They were emulating the 67, which, by the way, when you Google what year is the Eleanor Mustang, which I did just to double check to make sure I didn't butcher that and say it's a 68 or something like that and then get, you know, all hellfire ring down on me. But Google basically tells you that it's a 67 Mustang. So Google recognizes the newer Eleanor from the 2000 version of Gone in 60 Seconds as the official Eleanor. But the idea is that the lady who owns the copyright to Eleanor essentially owns the name Eleanor, and basically anything that is associated with a Mustang named Eleanor or Gone in 60 Seconds and is named Eleanor. So if you're building a Mustang named Eleanor, the argument from this lady's lawyer is that she could sue you for it. In fact, they went so far as suing Carroll Shelby, who I also didn't know created the newer Eleanor until I was researching this story, for some sort of licensing thing that he had going on with the newer movie. I believe he tried to license fan replicas of the car, and the person who owned the trademark was like, no, we're going to sue you, and she did end up winning in court, for what that's worth. The lawyer said, quote, "It doesn't matter if it was a bust called Eleanor," and then the quote continues, "The magic was the name, and that was the thing Shelby tried to get." So, I mean, to me, it really seems like a cash grab. It just really does. Like, I mean, I kind of get it, but also on the same token, you're going to go after, like, 3 different rungs down the ladder of, not even 3, but it's like so many steps away from the original that it's almost its own new original content. It's inspired by Eleanor, but this lady essentially thought that B is for Build was trying to, I guess, scrape off the top of her pile of cash, and I don't know, maybe the funds were running out and she needed to sue. B is for Build came out and was really nice about the whole thing. They kind of did a PC response, which isn't necessarily saying anything bad about them. It's kind of probably what they had to do with a lawsuit potentially pending. And the best course of action is really just to be nice if you can be, So they came out and they said, it is what it is. It's a part of the business. And, I think that in the big picture, especially when people find out that the lady who owns the rights to Eleanor as associated with this regular old yellow Mustang that looks nothing like the new one, I think people are naturally going to side with B is for Build. She kind of just looks like a bully in this case. B is for Build said sometimes this is just the way that things go, and I guess it really is at the end of the day. Are you going to get involved in litigation over something like this, or just kind of cut your losses and move on to the next thing? I think that most people would probably rather cut their losses. The one silver lining here is that B is for Build does seem to be getting some notoriety for the whole lawsuit. I just find it, even though no matter who's right here, in the court of public opinion, it really just seems like people are probably going to side with B is for Build because, I don't know, it just seems like a frivolous and ridiculous lawsuit. But as automotive creators like myself and hundreds of others pick this up, because I'm sure this is a story that's going to make its rounds, B is for Build might end up making out better in terms of gaining a new audience. I actually would encourage you to go check out their YouTube channel and see if there's anything on there that's for you. I kind of feel for them. You invest lots of time and money and effort into something like this, and then it gets crushed by something stupid like that. I'm sure that they weren't trying to offend anybody or hurt anybody, and then it is what it is sometimes. But anyways, with that, we're going to move on to the next story. So Volkswagen, this one actually is kind of inflammatory, and it's really stupid. Volkswagen decided to post on Instagram a advertisement that was actually pretty racist. So real quick, we're just going to play the ad for you right here.
Der neue Golf.
All right, so off the bat, watching it one time, you're like, probably nothing that bad about it, and that's probably because you don't speak German. But first of all, what we're seeing here is a massive white hand putting it. The ad doesn't even really make that much sense. Maybe it's just the cultural thing I don't understand because it's German, but I don't really get what the purpose is. Like, at first you might be going, okay, it's Volkswagen's way of saying, get away from my Volkswagen. Like, I don't want anybody near it, which, okay, that's a viable concept for a commercial, but that kind of gets debunked by the fact that the big white hand places this normal-sized little black dude, well, not little, he's normal-sized when you look at the car sitting there, normal-sized black dude by the car, and then flicks him away. It just, I don't know, I don't understand the concept. And if somebody freaked out about that being racist, I'm one of those people who kind of goes, I think that a lot of people draw their own context to a situation that's not actually there in a lot of situations. With this one, at least in that part of the ad being the case, like if this was the whole ad, I could see, okay, Volkswagen should probably have avoided that. They're a big company and they're super corporate, and you would think that this has to go through 9 or 10 or 11 different people in order to make its way up to any sort of social media or commercial or whatever. But that's not the worst part. So at the end, it looks like Volkswagen kind of has their catchphrase for this particular advertisement materialize on the screen. And this is something that I've seen a lot recently. One of these animations that's commonly used by video editors is materializes out of nothingness, and all the letters show up slowly, and then you have the phrase, right? But in this screen capture from the commercial, what we see here, it's hard to believe that they managed to do this, but the first letters that come on screen, I believe, I don't have the screenshot here. Oh, there it is. They are N-E-G-E-R. And if you still need a dictionary, they are out of order, but that is basically how you spell the German N-word. Okay, and if you're having trouble realizing, like, oh, that's still just a coincidence, not a big deal, just try and imagine it in English, even if the letters were out of order and they showed up on the screen like that. It's just, like, such a big screw-up that to me, it's hard to believe that a company like Volkswagen would manage to mess up that bad. Because like I was saying, man, even somebody like me who isn't very controlled by like shareholders or anything like that, I don't really have very many people to answer to. I wouldn't even come close to putting out something like that. Not even considering the big blunder with the letters, but also like the commercial itself. Like, you have to be very tone deaf to understand that, even if you don't think that's offensive, that there is guaranteed to be an uproar about something like that. Almost guaranteed, right? And then the fact that the N-word came on screen, it's like how does that happen? I'm sure it has to go through multiple layers of approval, but this is where it comes to kind of a conspiracy theory in my book. Because I got to thinking, and I'm like, that is such a big mistake that I'm not even sure it's possible with one person, let alone all of the eyes that were surely on this thing, to the point where I'm like, it got me thinking, is Volkswagen the all press is good press kind of company? Like, they probably go, okay, this is like deniable. We can kind of deny that it's racial if we do it in this certain way. And, people will probably get mad about it, but we'll be on their radar again, right? People will be talking about Volkswagen again. We'll come out, we'll apologize, and people will forget about it. That's just the way things tend to work. Most news stories, no matter how inflammatory, come out, they hit their cycle, and then usually within 24 hours, these days sometimes even less, there's another major story out there, quote-unquote major story. But it's just kind of crazy to me, and it has me thinking, based on Volkswagen's history of controversial advertisements and stuff like this, it has me wondering, is Volkswagen the all press is good press kind of company? Are they just putting out this stuff that's inflammatory on purpose, knowing they can apologize and it'll go away and people will be talking about Volkswagen? I don't like to believe in conspiracy theories, but hey, man, it seems like it definitely could be the case with something like this. So, enough about that. Let's move on to the next piece here. And this is going to be just a little bit of talk about Corona. I know that we're all sick and tired of hearing about Corona at this point in time, which it's kind of weird how the Corona talk subsided with all these protests. And now all of a sudden all these people are together. And I mean, it's going to be something to look at to see how the data ends up moving in one direction or the other after all of these protests they've been in the streets for, I don't even know, what's it been? It's been at least a week or two. It'll be interesting to see how the Corona graphs that they like to show all the time on the news going way up, how they end up being affected by these massive social gatherings. Not social gatherings. I don't know how to phrase that. These massive protests. So I'm one of those people who never really knew what to expect of Corona. I'm like, the media is hard to believe, and they want to blow that extreme story at you. And it's like, can I believe that these numbers are the way they are? Are you exaggerating it because mainstream media is failing and you need your clicks? I don't know what to make of it, so I kind of just have been straight on sitting on the fence, being conservative myself, trying to watch out for those in my family and my other loved ones, friends, all that good stuff. So other than that, we have seen steps to get back to racing. NASCAR is obviously back. No spectators. For some reason, though, I have a weird attraction to now being into NASCAR. Maybe it's because it's like the only sport on TV these days. I've gotten into NASCAR. Go Jimmy Johnson. Hope you put Kyle Busch into a wall. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Just beat him. Don't put him into a wall. I don't need that spinning out of control. And drag racing is happening without spectators. I'm not sure how that's profitable, but hopefully these promoters can make ends meet. Hopefully the track owners can make ends meet. It's just kind of tough economically because, you really have to do something to stay in business. I think that people are under the impression that these, businesses have years of payroll and of mortgage payments or rent or whatever just sitting in the bank account, which isn't the case. So this is where we get to the meat of the story here, is that Coles County Dragway ended up suing the government. I don't remember if it was local government in some capacity. They ended up suing and winning. The story I originally found over on Competition Plus pulled a quote that they were, quote, told by local health officials and government officials that they could not reopen the drag strip located in the southern part of Illinois, to which the drag strip owner basically said that they were being lumped in with Chicago, which obviously has a very high concentration of people and a lot of corona cases, but they're several hours south of Chicago and have nothing to do with Chicago. They're, probably more rural, more spread out, fewer people. And basically what happened was these guys were told that, not they were told, but they were about to shut down. What the story says is that, maybe they could last another month, but beyond that, they would be forced to shut down the drag strip. So basically they had racers chipping in, they were doing fundraisers, they were doing raffles, they were doing all kinds of stuff to try and keep the payments going on the piece of land. But obviously that's only sustainable for so long, right? You're not going to be able to have people being generous and keeping the track open forever. So they were like, look, we need to open. They decided to sue. They talked to a lawyer, and the lawyer basically said to deliver a statement to the government, and basically the government failed to respond. So they could open again. They basically won the lawsuit by default by the government officials not answering their requests. So they opened up once again. They were trying to be safe with the initial opening. They only allowed crews and racers in, and they were taking temperatures at the gate. And I don't know why. Like, Coles County Drag Strip, probably a nice place. But I kind of picture like one of those little backwoods drag strips and like taking everybody's temperature. It just creates a funny image in my head. I had a joke written down here. I'm not even going to say it. We'll just let that one go. But Coles County Drag Strip, they won. They opened back up. And it's different everywhere in the country what's happening. But, as far as this whole coronavirus thing goes, am I wrong in thinking that it's kind of silly that we're doing these cavemanish things to kind of get through it? It's like, they need to come out with a vaccine, or it's going to run its course, right? There's no other option. Like, staying inside, if they don't come up with a vaccine soon, which I'm sure these vaccines take forever. They have to go through the FDA and be approved and all this stuff. But in the meantime, what are we just going to never go back outside again? So there's kind of this weird middle ground where we're doing these cavemanish, very like basic, like, think about this. We could talk to our phone. I can order anything to my doorstep. I can access any piece of information in the world, but the most complicated thing that we have to combat a deadly virus is a piece of cloth over our face and not standing within 6 feet of anybody else. It's it's kind of crazy. And one of the other things that I saw the other day was actually a radio host that I like, shout out Josh Innes, was talking about this on his radio show about the new regulations that some concert companies, I guess, are trying to come up with in order to get concerts happening. And if you want to talk about cavemanish measures to get people back in place, the first part's kind of cool. They're thinking about getting these apps where you can text in or use this app to get yourself in line to buy a beer, which I actually think is kind of neat, because if you've ever been to like a concert or a sporting event, there's always these natural breaks in the action where everybody wants to go and get their beer or go to the bathroom. But with these apps, you can go get your food or beer or whatever and get in line, and then when it's ready, you just go up there, which is a very cool idea, actually. I like that one. Or go to the bathroom, which probably wouldn't work naturally. I'm just imagining. The other part is they're proposing that they make these 6-foot squares on the ground so that you stand in the middle of your square during a concert, right? During a concert. And then you're just supposed to stand in the middle of your square and not go out of your square. And just, it's weird to me. It's so archaic. And it's like, do you really think that at these concerts where people are drunk out of their minds, probably half of them are high, that there's not going to be a fight or an issue with asking people who are not in their right state of mind to stay inside these 6-foot squares? To me, it's just like, we want to do these half measures, and it's weird, man. It's just super weird. I just picture somebody that's whacked out of their mind coming into another person's square, punching them and getting punched in the face. And then like fights are going to break out, and we're going to have all these issues with this kind of thing. And it's just, it's I think we're desperate to get back to some sort of normal, but a lot of these ideas are just crazy. And then, the thing is, by saying that we're going to do these measures is basically saying, okay, coronavirus is real and it'll probably spread. But then you have all these squares that are spread out 6 feet from each other. And then you expect people to not, like the people in the middle, they can basically just go fuck themselves, right? Like, there's going to be somebody with corona, carrying corona even at a limited capacity concert. It's still going to be thousands of people. And if you're in the middle, you're basically breathing everybody else's air, which is kind of gross to think about because, in a concert, you're doing that anyway. But I don't know. It's just so strange to me. And on that note, I think we should actually move into the next topic of discussion, which was the headline for this video. Count them, 2 brand new Silverados were recovered from the ocean floor where they had been sitting for 22 months. And this one is more visual than anything else. I figured I could show you guys these pictures real quick here. Just because, we see these barn finds and all, and the cars have been sitting there and exposed to Mother Nature and the elements, and they've been rotting for a really long time. But we have never really had the opportunity to see what a brand new vehicle exposed to the most extreme elements for a long period of time would look like. So here's the picture, one of the pictures that was going around, right? And we have all this corrosion and, it's just kind of beat up and banged up. Anyways, the story behind these things is there was 2 trucks there, as you can see here. Another truck in the back over there. Basically, there was a ship with all these containers on board, and there was 81 that blew overboard due to high winds. And we aren't quite sure what was in the other ones. I believe that one of the other ones had tires in it. But basically, man, these things sat on the ocean floor for a span of nearly 2 years. I believe, again, I just feel like I read this somewhere and then I couldn't find it again. They said that I think that things had to settle a little bit so they didn't disturb it and end up spilling a bunch of stuff into the ocean. But they were recovered after 22 months. Each one of the trucks is said to have been worth $95,000, and they were on their way to Australia to be right-hand drive converted. Somebody had some serious money dumped into these things, and they were ready to really just go all out and have the trucks that they wanted. I assume, I don't know why. I guess they don't have diesel-powered pickups in Australia. Maybe they were getting a better deal by having them shipped or something, but long story short, someone was getting ready to spend some serious money on these things, and they were just dropped into the ocean. I just, imagine getting that call as, the buyer. Imagine how, there are people who have jobs where their job is basically to get yelled at on the phone all day, which has to be demoralizing. I feel for those people. But imagine being the person responsible for making this call, getting on the phone and being like, hey, yeah, that $200,000 worth of trucks that we were shipping for you that we were responsible for, yeah, we dropped them in the ocean. Oh, no, we can't get them back for 2 years. Hopefully your insurance will cover it. Yeah, yeah, okay, bye. Shipping woes suck, right? And that's a pet peeve of mine. I don't know, I don't have very many pet peeves. I do have a couple. But one of my pet peeves is people complaining about shipping. On Facebook, especially. People get on Facebook to complain, just kill me. I'm like, just shut up. Just shut up. You just shut up. You don't have the right to complain about shipping. Especially, sometimes things go a little bit too far, and companies are irresponsible as hell sometimes too. And they kind of have, they ditch their responsibility and they just leave you hanging. But people will get on Facebook and they'll be like, man, my what did I order? My PlayStation controller didn't get to my house in the 24 hours that they promised. It took 2 days. Amazon sucks. FedEx sucks. The whole world sucks. Everybody's against me, and everybody's irresponsible except for me. Guys, shut the hell up. Nobody cares, number one, about your shipping problems. And number two, be a little bit grateful that you can click a button and have a PlayStation controller at your house in 24 to 48 hours or anything that you want. People's not being grateful is like the worst. And then with shipping, I just like, especially these days where some people can't grasp the fact that literally everybody is at home and ordering a bunch of junk, and these shipping companies are overwhelmed. And it's like, if it's a day late, it's a day late. You'll get over it. But anyways, rant aside, it would majorly suck to have these 2 trucks that are now worthless, basically. I'd be shocked if they even get scrap value for them. Probably can't even pull the wheels off of them. Like, literally nothing on these trucks is salvageable. It's just a real bummer, man. So 81, here's the kicker, right? Like I said, 81 containers went missing. They were able to recover 62 of them because the rest they just couldn't find. To do that, it cost $9.5 million. You want to talk about adding insult to injury. Number one, you just screwed up pretty royally and that's even assuming that these were the most expensive pieces of cargo, right? Because those are big containers. They could have been filled with some expensive stuff that could have gone to the bottom. So who knows how much money worth of inventory and cargo they lost. Probably covered by an insurance company, but you can bet your insurance rates are going up after that. $9.5 million. $9.5 million to clean that stuff up. And I know some people are probably thinking like, well, why wouldn't you just leave it there? Well, number one, it's on record, and I'm sure that they probably got some sort of fine for even dumping it or losing it. And if they didn't, then I'm sure they would get some kind of fine for leaving it down there. Everything's on record these days. They would definitely, I'm pretty sure, have to go back and get that stuff and pay the $10 million. I need to open a business that will go and recover things from the ocean, because apparently I'm in the wrong line of business here. Man, that's just crazy to me. But anyway, moving on here. We're getting deep into this podcast. Hopefully it's going well. Hopefully you guys are enjoying yourself. I thank you again for joining in here. We're going to transfer into some C8 news. The first 3 pieces here have been about downers and destruction and, coronavirus and racists, and the world's a crazy place. Let's talk about some positive stuff. We have some C8 Corvette news, and guys, this platform I'm just happy to be alive today, in the car community. Because there were some probably boring years here and there, And while 2020 is an otherwise disaster of a year, we have like the new GT500, which is awesome. I'm a Chevy fan at heart. GT500 is an amazing machine, though. Like, just listening to the audio from one of those things sends a chill down my spine. We have the revival of the Supra, which some people are calling it a BMW. That's okay, though. I think it's pretty cool that we even have a Supra back. Like, again, all about that gratitude. Be grateful. Give feedback. Maybe they'll change it up a little bit. I think even where it is right now, it's not a bad modern rendition of the legend, the Supra. And then we obviously have, like, groundbreaking news. Obviously not new groundbreaking news, but the groundbreaking news of Chevrolet finally deciding that they want to go mid-engine with their Corvette. And, man, this thing seems to have been making some serious waves, and nobody ever thought this was going to be happening, right? Like, we all thought every generation they've been like, yep, Corvette's finally going mid-engine, and then it never happens. And there was a lot of speculation again, and I kind of just thought it was a bunch of BS, but lo and behold, here they are. They're coming out. They're great. And the cool thing about cars today is that they are very quickly modified. Like, they're out of the box, and these companies already have their hands on them. They're already modifying them. They have a twin-turbo car, which is the first thing on our list of things to talk about here. And with the internet bringing everybody closer together and being able to see everything, the competition is a lot higher, which I'm sure really stresses out these manufacturers and aftermarket companies, etc. But, it brings better products to market in a quicker fashion. Just like the C8's been out for maybe a couple months, and there's already a twin turbo car from Hennessy. Anyways, I just wanted to give you guys a quick clip. Like, I had to include this in a segment talking about the C8. Just listen to this thing. Keep in mind, too, that it's not tuned yet. I think they went 1060 with the car on nitrous, untuned. GM locks up the computers. They don't want people touching them because they don't want their cars blown up, I guess, for having to pay out on warranties. And they don't want it to look like their cars are blowing up because tuners don't know what they're doing. So there is no tuning software yet. So this is an untuned C8. Just watch and listen for a brief second here while we hear and see what Hennessy has come up with as far as a twin-turbo Corvette, guys. You're going to love this one. Tell me that's not awesome. Like, the thing about, there's different cars that have their own sounds. Like the Mustang, I think, has a very unique, like, a lot of Mustangs do sound similar, but a lot of Corvettes sound similar too. And like, they have their own unique sound. And I'm a fan of the way that Mustangs sound. And I like the Corvette. I guess it's because, combination of, probably not, because like a lot of times you can tell. Sorry, I'm just running through this concept in my head. I'm just spitting out gibberish. Let me start over. The Corvette and the Mustang have their unique sounds. I like each of them, right? And then like the Corvette has this, I think that because of the routing of the exhaust, it's so tight and then it like goes over the axle. I think that's what gives it its unique sound. And then this one is obviously different. It's something we're completely not used to, throwing that twin turbo whistle. And I just, the note from this thing is incredibly awesome. I'm so excited, man, to see where they go with this thing. Granted, this is only a couple months in production, and we haven't seen any higher trim levels yet. This is a base model car, which, by the way, they're also looking pretty badass when they get lowered and wheels are on them and all kinds of stuff like that. The second topic of discussion, actually, when it comes to this platform, actually has to do with the fact that this is the base model. So normally we're used to seeing like Grand Sport, Z06, ZR1. There's going to be allegedly another top tier version of the Corvette C8, storied to be the C8 Zora. And there are 3 terms. By the way, this was a leak reported by Haggerty, very, very reliable source. So you get these leaks all the time and you don't know what's going to happen with them, but this was reported by Haggerty, so it could be legit. But they're said to have, they're said to be coming out with the C8 Zora. 3 different phrases are going to sum this thing up very nicely. Number 1, 1,000 horsepower, right? Big deal from the factory. Awesome. Number 2, all-wheel drive. Another thing that I have been pleading for in an American muscle car for a long time. And number 3, hybrid, which not typical, but is typical, right? It's typical in the supercar world. A lot of supercar companies have been doing it. So let's break into these and dive into them and talk about them a little bit. Number 1, 1,000 horsepower. Not much to say there. 1,000 horsepower is 1,000 horsepower. It's a lot of power. Power to weight ratio is a big deal. That's a lot of power. There's not a lot of weight. I don't know exactly what the C8 weighs. I assume it's probably under 3,600 pounds. Probably even lighter than that. That's probably a little bit high. But from there, we move to all-wheel drive. And this is something like the hybrid part. We'll get to the all-wheel drive last because I think that's the most exciting. The hybrid power is going to essentially, for those who aren't super familiar, we have on one end of the spectrum like these combustion cars that make a ton of power and they have a ton of trap speed, like in a drag racing situation. So they'll be faster up top, but it's getting very hard to compete with the electric power off the line because electric power is consistent. It's all the power exactly how you need it out there. It'll get it out. The torque curve, you can make it whatever you want pretty much. Someone in engineering is probably going to correct me on that, but essentially you can get all the power to the wheels without having to worry about it bogging down and things like that. So this is why Teslas are so quick without trap speed. They're not going too fast when they get to like the quarter mile, say, but they get out of the hole so quickly and efficiently and consistently with their all-wheel drive combinations that it doesn't matter. They're still running 10s, even though it might be at like 110 or 112 or whatever it is. So then you take that and you combine it with all-wheel drive, which, like, back in the day, growing up, like, one of my first real muscle cars, I guess you'd call it a real muscle car, I had the 2005 GTO. A lot of people who have been around for a while probably remember that car. And the thing is, like, when I had that car, the other cool cars in the community were, like, some guys had Evos or Subarus or, other DSM cars, Then, the GTR eventually made its way out. And all these awesome imports had all-wheel drive capabilities. And then you start looking at cars like, Audi. Like, Audis are ridiculous, guys. for those of us here in the American car community who don't really kind of like, I didn't really follow along with that kind of stuff, but you get these, I'm going to butcher this one. I think they're RS8s, the big one, like the big boy, like, the sedan, like heavyweight Audi, right? All-wheel drive, a little bit of tuning, a couple of bolt-ons, and they're ridiculous. I remember when I had my Z06, I got clapped up by one of those things on the streets. And the guy was like real cocky about it, but I was kind of like, I probably would be too. Because we pulled back in the parking lot, and my Corvette spins like an MFer on blacktop, right? But this Audi sticks like shit on a blanket, and we pull back in, he's like, yeah, I have my cool cup holders on too, keeping my drinks nice and chilly. And I'm like, dude, I hate you, but that's pretty cool. So long story short, all-wheel drive and electric capability down low to get the Corvette out of the hole, and then to have it followed through with 1,000 horsepower on the big end where it can really get a head of steam going. This thing is going to be nasty, and I assume that the issue probably has been, sorry about that the issue has probably always been, you know, all this torque with American cars, instantaneous torque instead of the small displacement engines that these imports have with their turbos that take a little bit of time to get into the power band. With these American cars, it's just instantaneous power. I assume it probably would have been very expensive to combine that with an efficient all-wheel drive system and bring it out and have people willing to pay that much more money to make something like that. But I thought it would have been very cool, and we're finally going to get to see it with the Zora if it comes through to fruition. And if Corvette can keep up the bang for your buck platform that they have been living off of and kind of competing with these top-end supercars for so long on a budget, it's going to be nasty. It's going to be something that I really want to buy. And if they come out again with the CTS-V with a similar thing, you could put my name on it. Like, you could almost put my name on the Zora. It sounds very awesome, but if they do that in a V platform, like an all-wheel drive, 1,000 horsepower hybrid CTS-V, like, just take me now. Like, I just need to buy one of those, and I'm done. Then you can just kill me. I'm done because it's awesome. Anyways, our last piece of C8 news that I found interesting from around the community, potentially one of the most viral stories, builds. If I were to guess about the most viral builds of the upcoming year, it would probably be Rob Dom's 2020 Corvette that he will be engine swapping. And if you guys have followed along with Rob Dom's channel, he does a lot of rotary stuff. And he built that wicked, what was it, a 4-rotor RX-7. He built a rotary swap C5, which really pissed off the Corvette community. I thought it was a pretty cool build. And in his latest build, he has some viral potential in a rotary swapped, we're going to pull it up here, rotary swapped C8 Corvette. And it just seems like it really has all the makings of the next big thing on YouTube. So I wanted to take a minute just to point this out to you guys. You know, and I don't know Rob personally, but it just seems like from watching some of his content that he's really thorough and interested in creating the best product. So something like this, I'm just excited to see what this is going to come out to be. And it seems like a build that's going to be interesting to watch. So I just wanted to point it out to you guys. And it seems to have all of the makings to really be something that's worth watching. You know, not that I'm, you know, whatever, is what it is. That segment sounded weird coming out, but I think it'll be a cool build to watch. You know, the thing I wanted to kind of bring up here is the interesting topic of how people get upset about these kind of builds, right? They go, oh, it's a Corvette and you're rotary swapping it or you're Ford swapping it, or like Mustang guys. Like, dude, you guys can be the worst about this. Like, they get upset about LS swaps and Mustangs. Even if it's like a Fox body, like not even a nice Fox body, it'll be like a crappy old, like rusting into the ground Fox body, and be like, oh, you should have kept the original motor in her because now it's a goddamn blasphemy. Goddamn, I kissed my sister. But people get all upset about it, and people, I think that I remember reading a good amount of upset comments about Rob swapping a C5 Corvette. Like, guys, these C5 Corvettes are pennies on the dollar. Like, It's not like it's a rare car. Even the C8, it was a wrecked C8. People were probably going to get all up in arms about this too. But it's like, it's just a weird phenomenon how people get upset about cars that they don't own, right? Especially very common cars like this. I mean, maybe if it was like a rare collector's version, I could see it. But it's like, I don't know, man. It's not your money. You're not losing money. You're not like, the car is what it is. And then just to get upset about that is really weird to me. I don't know. Maybe you guys can shed some light on that for me in the comments section because I'm excited to see this. And I'm actually excited to see the controversy too. Like, everybody's attracted to a good old-fashioned train wreck, and I feel like the comments section is going to deliver that with this one. Okay, so last but not least, there was a clip floating around that I saw that I actually wanted to create a segment for. It didn't really fit that well, though, so I'm going to create a clip segment just because this clip was something that I thought would add value to the podcast, and maybe we could talk a little bit about it. And we're going to call this the Hidden Treasure, aka finally found my 10mm socket clip of the week. So let's just we're going to play this one for you. Hopefully you can come up with your own opinion here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it. So let's roll the footage. All right, so if you couldn't make that out, basically what we gathered here was that somebody was making a pass down the drag strip, right? And the drag strip was getting ready to close, I suppose, but they were making a pass down the drag strip. Anyways, by the way, I did reach out to the track, and they essentially left me on red here. So the story that I'm going to have to go with is the story that the one side of this reported, which is the guy who uploaded the video. And essentially what happened was, I guess the track manager thought that this car shouldn't be making a pass. So as the car got down the track, he decided that the best course of action was to throw a cinder block or large rock. One or the other. We'll just call it a cinder block. Throw a cinder block at the car. Let me repeat that. The track manager threw a cinder block at a car. I'm not kidding. We need to do better, guys. Like, what the hell is this? So, the things to consider here, sure, maybe somebody was making a pass down the track when they shouldn't have been. Maybe there's some beef there that we don't know about. Whatever. Cool. But no matter what the situation is, the answer to your equation is not going to be to throw a rock at a moving vehicle. Because, number one, that's going to cause a lot of damage. And number two, you could potentially kill somebody or multiple somebodies by doing this. Now, if you think about this situation and we want to break it down even further, you have to think about the idea that the person at the starting line essentially had to send the tree, right? The person at the starting line essentially had to hit the tree, which then allowed this car to make its way down the track, okay? So from there, the guy had permission from one end to make his pass. And even if he didn't, I just don't understand why the track manager would deem it okay to throw a rock at a car going down the track. Anyways, I just, that had to be a clip that I had to show you guys. There's not a ton to say about it. It's really self-explanatory. Hopefully these guys got something figured out. I know it would be a lot to calm down. I would be a lot to calm down if I had a rock thrown at my car. So it's about what I got for you guys. And I thank you for joining part 1B of Kleibcast 001. Again, if you guys would want to support the show, down in the description below, /comments, /wherever this can be pinned, we got the link to the store if you want to support. Again, all these segments are going to be uploaded to the channel throughout the week. Thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully we can make this podcast into something great. And I'll catch you guys in 2 weeks on Wednesday. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, it's been great, guys. I had some fun. Hopefully you did too. Later.